This is a presentation on ecosystems and energy transfer. The objectives are that students will be able to describe common vocabulary of ecosystems and energy transfer. Students will also be able to draw a food chain. The vocabulary of this presentation is energy transfer, primary producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, decomposers, parasites, scavengers, predators, herbivores, carnivores, and food chains. The first important word is energy. Energy is what is being transferred through an ecosystem. First, the sun gives energy to plants through light, and then the plants use the process of photosynthesis to make leaves, branches, and other plant matter. Plants are primary producers. This means they have the ability to produce their own stuff, or what we call in science as matter. Plants produce fruit and leaves that other organisms eat. There are producers in the ocean, the mountains, and here in the savannas of Africa. Primary consumers eat plants. This also means that primary consumers eat the primary producers. The word primary in this case means first. These are the first organisms that have to consume their own food because they cannot produce it themselves from sunlight. These lions are secondary consumers that eat the primary consumers. They get their energy from the energy that is consumed by other animals. Because secondary consumers have to eat each other, they tend to be in fewer numbers than the animals they eat. This is true for lions and the antelope they prey on. Let's put this all in a food chain. First, the sun gives light energy to the plants that convert it into plant matter. The zebra eats the plants, acquiring energy from them. The zebra's energy is passed on to the lions. So where did the lion's energy originally come from? That's right, the plants. Let's apply the vocabulary to this food chain. The primary producer creates living plant matter from the sun. Again, producers are plants. The primary consumer will eat the primary producer. The secondary consumer eats the primary consumers to get their energy. Let's talk about common mistakes that students make when they draw food chains. Often the arrows are drawn in the opposite direction. Sometimes students think the arrow represents who eats who, but it represents the transfer of energy. Another important type of organism to an ecosystem are decomposers. This is a photo of a bunch of dung beetles. They eat and lay their eggs in dung. In turn, they help break down the dead and decaying plant matter back into the soil so that plants can use it again. Look at this dung beetle rolling up a piece of dung. On top of the beetle are two parasite mites living off the beetle. What energy transfer is taking place here? Can we draw a food chain of this interaction? What other organisms have played a role here? Let's start in the upper right. The mites will get their energy from the beetle. The beetle will get its energy from the dung or feces made of plant material that came from the elephant. The elephant is going to get its energy from the plants, who are primary producers. Let's use the vocabulary. First, the primary producers pass their energy on to the elephant, who is a primary consumer. The dung is decaying plant matter that is a source of energy for the decomposer. The mite is a parasite that is acquiring its energy from the beetle. Let's go over some common vocabulary used in ecosystems to describe organisms. First, there are predators. These are organisms that eat other animals, which we call their prey. Here we have three predator examples with the cobra, the orb spider, and the cheetah. Next we have herbivores, which are primary consumers that only eat primary producers. This means they only eat plants. Water buffalo, giraffe, and moose are just a few examples of herbivores. Omnivores make up another important category of organisms in an ecosystem. They will eat either plants or animals. This means they are both carnivores and herbivores. Sometimes they are even predators too. Humans are often considered to be omnivores. As energy gets passed from organism to organism, sometimes there is leftover matter that can be energy for organisms that don't like to eat plants but aren't good hunters. This group of organisms are called scavengers. Hyenas, vultures, and foxes are scavengers. Lastly, we have the decomposers. They get their energy from dead and decaying plant and animal matter. They also help make soil to use as nutrients for plants. Flies, mushrooms, fungi, and worms are all very common and important decomposers. If we trace energy in this food web, we can see how the decomposers and scavengers get their energy. Look at the top. They will eat what is left over after the secondary consumer get its energy. This helps cycle the nutrients back into the plants for the future. What you should have learned from this presentation is the common vocabulary associated with ecosystems and organisms, and you should be able to draw a simple food chain. Remember, the sun is the source of all energy in an ecosystem.